All right, so first question's always the same, and we've got a very interesting answer every week. So I'm hoping one of y'all are going to give me one. But how did you meet your wife, and how long have you been married?
I met mine at the Ripley Church of Christ. Her grandmother attended here. Of course, I grew up here. She was from Birmingham. She came to visit her grandmother, and we met here at church.
Good place.
How long you been married?
Been married for, it'll be 22 years in November.
Pretty much, me and my wife have known each other almost all of our lives. We grew up, went to school together, same grade, lived just a few miles, well, had less than a mile from each other for the first few years of our lives. Didn't really know each other then, we were too young. But our families were friends. Both of them were farmers, so we knew each other. We both were in the band and so forth. So we had a working relationship as far as general friends. If I had to ask her out in high school, y'all would still be trying to peel me up off the ground, because I just don't believe she would have had it. As the one might say, I was a little rough around the edges. Still am. But we've been married for 32 now, isn't it?
When's our anniversary?
What's the
I
anniversary
don't
date?
know what the anniversary is. Either December 16th or 19th, and I can't remember which one.
I'm 2 years in, and I still
We
have to sit and
celebrate
think
2
about
days
it.
because I can't remember.
All right.
Well, every Sunday afternoon back when we were in school, there was always a football game, a touch football game going on down at the high school and community college practice field, and that's kind of where Katie and I don't know if that's when we first met, but that's sort of when my interest was sparked, I guess I'd say. And I don't know if it's because she could outrun me or run over me or what it was, but she caught my attention while we were playing touch football, and we started dating, and it took right at 4 years of begging and pleading and just everything else, and finally she gave in and we got married. And we've been married for a little over 40 years, and I asked about that before I came up here so I wouldn't get in trouble. But it's been a pretty good marriage, had its ups and downs. Some of the downs may be here tonight, but it has been a good long relationship for us.
Y'all are going to have to excuse me if I just get tickled every answer he says, because I'm just going to. But it is, I will say this, it's interesting to watch my mom when somebody else is talking, because every time I preach, she just has this, what are you talking about face on? So it's good to know it's not just me. But
One thing y'all might find interesting about me and Regina is that we were 29 years old before we ever started dating. So
That's
we
a smart way to do it.
basically had done a lot of our lives on our own. And I want to recommend that you live on your own some before you get stuck in a relationship. Well, see, sometimes that's exactly what will happen to you. You'll get stuck in a relationship that wasn't what you really meant for it to be. So give yourself time to find out who you are. Give her time to find out who she is. And then when you're ready to settle down, and once we started dating, it wasn't but about 6 or 8 months before we knew we were going to get married. But, you know, when you done everything that you could do, except you might as well settle down.
well, I'll go ahead and say this for this week, since I do every week, but understand they do have a different perspective of things. They're married, you're looking to date, but talking about healthy relationships, they've been in a relationship a long time. They know what they're talking about on this stuff. So with that being said, what would a healthy relationship look like to y'all? What would you describe it as, both in the context of being married and dating?
Well, I think as far as having a good, healthy relationship, so many people you know, they say, well, you need to have things in common. And I guarantee you, if you ask Katie right now, she's shaking her head, what we have in common, she will say absolutely nothing. And that's true to an extent, because anything I like to do, she doesn't like to do, and vice versa. But what is important, I think, and makes a relationship healthy is that your moral and Christian values are the same. As long as that's there, it doesn't matter if you have other things in common or not. And I think that's the most important thing that you can have is common ground. Doesn't have to always be completely common, because you can change people a little bit, but it takes a lot of time. But if you've got the same type values, your relationship has a lot better chance, I think, of lasting. Because if you don't have the same values, you're going to be pulled in different directions. And I think that's much more important to have that in common than it is to go fishing together or to movie together or whatever, is to have those values.
I think that's absolutely right. But I think you can have a few things in common, but what's going to make a relationship good is the things you don't have in common. Because you're not going to spend all of your time together. And you need to be comfortable with that. She's going to have her interests, guys, and guys, I know you're going to have your interests. But it's got to have that common basis of morality and where you're coming and where you want to go together to have a healthy relationship. You know, Regina and I, we like to go traveling sometimes when we get a chance. Mostly we're running around trying to follow our kids, whatever they're doing nowadays or something. And some of our best conversations are in the car when it's just the two of us driving up and down, you know, wherever we're going. And, you know, we talk about a lot of things then. But as far as us having anything in common, we both like to watch TV. We like to cook a little bit, pedal around the house and all. But I'm interested in woodwork, and I'm interested in tractors, and I'm interested in music. And I get pretty deep in some of it. She follows me with some of that, and then I'll follow her sometimes. Her big thing is where she runs all the operations center at the bank, the People's Bank, and she's got a real big job and a real hard job. She's kept many a night late. Sometimes there's been some 2 or 3 days at a time when I never even see her unless I got up and carried her something to eat up at the bank and visited her for a few minutes. So nowadays she's gotten up a little bit more. She has to go on some trips to do some training on this, that, or other, learn about a new product that they're going to start offering at the bank. I go with her a lot of times. Now, I ain't got a thing in the world to do except sit and watch TV, or, you know, every now and then, like we got to go to Detroit a couple of years ago, I got to go to the automotive plant and watch it build trucks. Now that was something. But I went with her and I got to do my own thing while I was there. So you don't have to have everything in common, but having a good central basis, a good Christian relationship, both of you Christians, that's important. If you're not both Christians, it's not going to necessarily destroy your relationship, but it is going to make it so hard to move forward in so many areas. So find someone that has your same Christian values and get to know some of their likes, some of their things that they like to do, and do it with them. Vice versa. But then be comfortable doing your own things. Okay, I'll stop talking for a minute.
I think to build a relationship, Donna and I spend a lot of time together. We work together, so we communicate, and that really helps our, you know, everything about our relationship. it's built trust. It's one of the things is that I don't have to worry about, never have had to worry about my wife cheating on me or that kind of stuff. She hadn't had to worry about me. We've had a commitment, so we've had that trust. That has to build. You don't get that, you know, off your first date. You know, it takes time to feel like that I trust someone. It also takes time to you know, some people communicate differently. They communicate. Some people talk all the time. Some people don't. So, and y'all know Donna. So anyway, so communication is very important, and trust. I believe, and I think both these men give better answers. But
You know she watches these videos, right? So you just be careful on your pictures. Yeah. So would y'all say there is any difference in a healthy relationship for married people or people that are dating?
It pretty much should be the same. If you're dating or married, you've got to have the same amount of trust. Otherwise, you're not ever going to get to. If you're dating and you don't trust them, you don't need to marry them. So, you know, if you're looking for a lifetime partner, then you look for certain things, like someone that's trustworthy, someone you don't mind, you know. For me and Regina, she goes off on some of those trips. Sometimes she has to go by herself, and she's talking to some pretty nice looking guys. And they got a heck of a lot more money than me. You know, if I was jealous all the time, you know, that wouldn't work. When I was full-time running my cabinet shop, I would meet a lot of really nice ladies. And they come to my shop all hours of the day, just be me and her. And or I'll go out and meet them or whatever. And if Gina didn't trust me, you know, that wouldn't work. And of course, there was nothing there to worry about for her, and I don't believe for me. So it was a trust thing. You know, you just know, and you'll know when you trust them. You'll know when that trust is there because you'll have some kind of an inner peace when you're with them. And if you're not having that, then you might want to talk to them about it. You know.
Y'all got anything on that?
go ahead.
Well, I just say that dating is basically a trial, and if you see those things that are alarms to you, and as he said, things that you would feel uncomfortable with, then that's going to lead to an unhealthy relationship. And I think the difference in the dating and being married as far as that goes is that you need to take care of all these, get your priorities, what you want in that relationship while you're dating, so that you understand what you're going into after your marriage, and see that there's no alarms or anything there to cause you concern. And don't go into a relationship or a marriage if you have any of those concerns. Just make sure that you feel good about it with no concerns, and that's where the healthy part will come in. And so I think the difference in the dating and the marriage would just be that you are actually looking more, and you should be satisfied after you're married.
I know my mother was always giving me this advice: when you're dating someone and you find out that it's not the right person, stop dating them. And it seems simple, but I'm telling you, I know people that have dated people when they knew that that's not. But I want to go do these things. He takes me to the movies, and we get. But you know what I mean. But the thing is if once you figured out that this person is not the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with, it's time to quit dating.
All right. So if y'all had to specifically pick one or two aspects of a healthy relationship that are necessary for a healthy relationship, what would they be?
Well, first, he mentioned it earlier, trust. Trust, and that's the most important thing. Having someone that will listen to you is important. They need to listen as well as talk. If you're the only one that ever talks, well, you may be like me. You just run your mouth all the time. But you've got to listen to what the other person's saying too. So, you got to do that.
The trust and communication, like I said, that's key, and I fail at that all the time, the communication
We all
part.
do that.
I'm reminded of that all the time as well. But I do try to do better on that. But I think that's really key. I think communication leads to the trust and everything else.
Just echo that?
Yes, I'll echo that.
All right.
Yeah.
And yeah, his problem with communication is he thinks he's talking regularly, but he's yelling at you. So,
Some people don't listen well.
that's very true. That's not wrong. All right, so on the reverse, if you had to pick one or two aspects of an unhealthy relationship, what would they be?
I'd have to get into jealousy, and being selfish.
Control, being over controlling. Guys, if you feel like you've got to all the time have your hands on her, you're in the wrong place. You're doing wrong. Keep your hands to yourself. Girls, if the only way you can identify whether or not you're happy with him is that he's trying to be handsy with you, he's the wrong guy. Okay? So you got to know boundaries. Know your boundaries and keep there. If you wouldn't, anything you do, if it was something that you wouldn't do in front of your parents, don't do it. Don't do it when you're alone. That's a good basic rule and all. But a lot of what I have seen is a domineering guy over women, and they don't let them make decisions. They don't include them in decisions. I can't, whether it's a married couple or a dating couple, anytime I see it, and it's easy to see, I want to go over and hit somebody with a sledgehammer, because you don't need to be dominated. You don't need to be a wimp either. Just a blow over. Let anybody just push you. But I guess a common scenario would be when you're, well, where do you want to eat? I don't know. Where do you want to eat? Well, I don't know. Well, why don't you just pick? Well, somebody needs to pick. Yes, you don't want to always steer somebody to the same eating joint all the time, of course. But don't be afraid to tell the guy. If the guy asks you where you want to eat, don't be afraid to tell him, say, I'd like to go down to Cracker Barrel.
That's 30% of marriage, just trying to figure out where you're going to eat.
Yeah, and we have that still, but our problem is not because we're dating, it's because we got tired of food. I eat a plenty of it, as you can tell, and I never know what I want to eat anymore. It all sounds good, and it all sounds terrible at the same time.
A sledgehammer, though?
Yeah, sledgehammer's a good thing.
Deal?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to agree with these men. It was the negative question of the positive that we were just answered. So I still think that communication and trust and it's a funny thing though, to kind of change it a little bit. There is a funny thing when you do get married that you start seeing. Well, we don't put the forks in front of the spoons in the drawer. We put the spoons in front of the forks. Or the milk goes on the left side of the refrigerator, not on the right. But there's 100 little bitty things that I'm used to. That's the way we did it in my home. And one piece of advice, young men: never say that's the way Mom did it.
Amen. Amen.
Never say it.
I have to tell this story. When we first got married, there was an old woman laughing at us in Walmart because she was like, "But we always use this kind of garbage bag. We have to get this kind of garbage bag." was like, okay, get whatever garbage bag you want.
No,
But-
no, you didn't let me get those garbage bags.
Okay, maybe I don't remember the story.
You're being
Either way,
commentary.
it was pretty funny. All right.
You better change the subject.
Yeah, let's just change the subject real quick. And you did kind of you kind of got some cliche answers there of communication and trust. But as I've said 100 times, cliches are cliches for a reason. Those are two very, very, very important things in a healthy relationship. So since they are dating and not married, how much time do you think is necessary to maintain a healthy relationship? How much time is too much time together?
I think the time should grow. One thing is you really want to marry your best friend, and so when you're in a relationship with when you're in the first grade and you got a friend, y'all didn't spend all the time together, but as you got into high school, y'all got to be best friends and you spend a lot more time together. That's the same way it should be, kind of as a dating process, as you're dating and becoming friends, because you're going to start telling each other all, you shouldn't start out telling all your private things, but as you become friends, you're going to do it. And so it's how you handle that. It's also, how's my partner, are they receptive to that? Are they giving me good advice? That kind of stuff. But anyway, that's
I'm going to ask you a follow-up. So if you have a couple that starts dating and they're automatically just spending an obsessive amount of time together, well, a lot of time together, would that start to get toward obsession instead of a healthy relationship?
That's a danger. That's a danger point because you're not growing as individuals at that point. You're too quickly becoming so attached to each other that everything else in your life is pushed back, and you want to keep up with that, keep up with what you have been doing otherwise. You don't want to change yourself overnight just to date a particular person. But I can agree definitely with what Mr. Tim said here about that it should grow with the amount of time that you've dated and all. But at first, look, one regular date, an actual go out date a week is enough to get started. After several weeks of that, as you get to know each other, of course you may see each other at school or at work, whatever the case may be. That probably doesn't necessarily count unless you're spending your time there to the exclusion of others. But maybe as you grow, a couple of nights a week, you might get to see each other for a couple of hours. Maybe go out to eat a little something, or go over to her place, or him come over to your place for a little bit. Meet with the folks. You want to do things some with their family. One thing Regina mentioned before we got married is, if you marry me, you marry my family. So kind of keep that in mind. If you don't like their family, it might not be wonderful, but you can make it work. But you've got to do it gradually, but you've got to talk. And you can't be afraid to say what you like, and you can't be afraid to say what you don't like to each other. If they can't handle it, then they're the wrong person.
Well, growth is definitely different in dating and marriage too. They both need to grow at different rates, and it depends a lot on the people. Dating, you're trying to grow more in getting to know and make decisions about the person, but in marriage, you're growing the relationship as a lasting thing rather than a testing thing. They're a little different. And something that popped in my mind when we're talking about growth, and I may get in trouble for telling this, but it wouldn't be the first time. When Cody and Megan got married, I had my little speech worked out for their rehearsal supper, and I told off on Megan a few things, Cody a few things. And my main point, sometimes when I get to talking, I get kind of tender-hearted, and I didn't want to stand up there and cry in front of everybody. So I cut it off short, but I did write them a note and left with, we took the gifts to their house later, but I was talking about the growth in marriage, and something I've thought about a lot myself. In marriage, as you grow, you know, you get married and you stand there and you know, you talk about your undying love to each other, and that's good, and hopefully that love is there. But what I told them was that I hope that after they've been married for 20 years, that they could look back at that day that they got married and have doubts about whether they were really in love when they got married, because it's important that your love grow. It grows and changes. And I thought about my relationship that way, and as I look back, you kind of doubt because your love's grown enough, and you bonded more and you got to know each other more. And then I went on and said, and I hope then that after 40 years, you can look back to the 20-year mark and even have doubts then that you were really and truly in love, because love grows, and it's just like your Christian relationship with God. It grows, and that's evident if you go into the auditorium on Sunday morning and you look and you watch the people, you'll notice, and you've noticed this already, that your most devoted Christians, the ones who are most willing to work, are usually your older people who have grown more and more in their Christianity. And that's the same way I think a relationship works. It grows, that love grows, and you work and grow together. And without that growth, you're not going to have a healthy relationship. But at the same time, we're talking about the time, as he asked, in that growth. You have to have the time apart. I remember a few years ago, I think it was a song, but Katie would point this out occasionally. I still love you, but I just need a little time right now. And so you do need to have your own time, but you need to always work and grow your relationship.
All right.
Yeah, the time thing, Gina could tell you right quick. I'm a loner by heart. I'm a loner. I love to be alone with my TV, with my music, with whatever it is. When she leaves and goes to work in the morning, and everybody else is gone from the house, man, I'm feeling good. when she comes home, I'm ready for her to come home. So it's a, you know, you got to give each other the time to do that. Maybe one of you likes to hunt a lot, and you don't like, say one of the girl doesn't like hunting, and I want you to stay here and do so and so with me. You need to let him go hunt. Now, if that's all he wants to do, that might be a little problem. Because guys, you got to do a little bit of what they want to do. And that may be go to the flower garden, or help plant the garden, or whatever, which I like to do that anyway. You know, you got to have your alone time so that you'll appreciate your together time.
All right. Well, let's get into some fun questions.
I was having fun.
Me too. I thought I'd done pretty good.
I think it's going to be the opposite.
All right. So fighting is going to happen. How can you fight in a healthy way?
I'm scared.
Not everybody at once.
You know, that is, I think everybody would handle that different. And we've talked about that before. We've had what we call fights, but we've never really had any just real fights, hardly, I guess you'd say. But now we fuss 23 hours at least a day, you know. And I think sometimes it's healthy to, you know, some little something like the spoon fork deal that's bothering me. Well, I'll make some little remark and get it out. You know, I get it out off of my chest. She may come back with a remark, but we don't really fight, but we don't let things like that build up. That's what's important, is not to let it build up. But like I said, with us, we probably fussed 3 or 4 times driving up here, and we didn't even talk much. But I go back to another memory, and Cody was involved in this. His older brother more than him, but if Katie and I kind of got in a little fuss or something at the house, they might just drag a chair right up between us, and it's like watching a tennis match, you know. So we've never really gotten into that, but I think both of us have got our way of kind of saying what's bothering us, and we kind of get it off our chest and don't let it build up. I think that's the biggest thing, is to fight without letting it build up and matter. And the old thing, never go to bed mad. Occasionally I might have still been mad, but I forget about it the time I wake up. So, you know, just don't wake up mad. Maybe that's the best thing.
Well, me and Regina, we really don't fight either. We do pick at each other all the time. I mean, but we pick at our kids. I mean, our family we just pick at each other all the time. But I think each one of us knows none of us mean it personally. You know, but I can't really think of an actual fight that Regina and I have ever really had. Like, you know, your biggest fights, if you do have fights, are most likely to be over money. And so, you know, that's one thing I always want to recommend to a younger person is wait until you've had some time to get a job or live on your own a little bit. Balance that checkbook, boy or girl. If you can balance your own checkbook and live within your means alone, then you can do it together. But if one of you is a spendthrift, that means spends all the time, spends everything, uses that credit card, builds it up, only pays the minimums, and you know, and the other one is frugal, which means they're careful about spending their money. And then you think you're going to get married and get along, you have got a big war coming, because you've got to reconcile the money sometime, and it causes more stress between a couple than anything you can imagine. You get in a financial tight, and one's working and the other one's not. It's not going to be pretty. So learn to live within your means, and that will also help build that trust we've been talking about all the time. If I when I was dating Regina, if I was the spender, and I had some debt when we got married, but it's because I was a farmer. I was extremely careful about how much money I spent and how much debt. I didn't have too much, but it was there. And our first priority was to wipe that debt out. And because I always, inside myself, I hate debt. If you're in debt, you owe somebody more than just money. You owe them your life. So don't be in debt to people. Don't be in debt to the bank. Live within your means. But now I know I'm yakking on too much again, but Gina, you want to say anything?
I said, really?
Really? But you got to watch out about that. That'll cause the biggest fights.
I'm sort of struggling with the idea of a healthy fight. Now, I do believe that the making up is very healthy. Forgiveness is nothing like it. We as Christians know about forgiveness, and we should not just think about it as God giving me forgiveness. I've got to give it to my spouse. I've got to give it to you. I can't just every little thing, even though it might hurt my feelings, go on, forgive them. You don't necessarily have to go back and you know, pick at the scab. You know, forgive.
I'll go back. I got to talk again. I'm sorry, but I think y'all find this enlightening. We didn't actually have a fight over this, but it could have caused a fight. a real big fight. A couple of years after we'd been married, my dad and brother went into the ostrich business, started growing ostrich, and I wanted to do it too, because you know, I am a risk taker. That doesn't mean I'm just wild. I hope that doesn't come across. But I will take some risks. Regina's not a risk taker. She wants pretty much guaranteed things, outcomes. But I will invest in things that might be a little risky, whereas it really bothers her. And this did, although she did the Christian thing, and she said, well, you're the head of the house, you do what you think you need to do. So I invested in a pair of ostrich, and as luck would have it, after about a year and a half, one of them had an accident and broke its neck. So bye-bye half of my investment. And then I had trouble selling the other ostrich to try to recoup some of my stuff. Now, I will tell you this, Regina has never, I know she was mad. She has never thrown that back in my face. And I thank her for that, because it, you know, it could have been a big fight over that. That was a money thing. I lost about $10,000, to be quite honest, on that whole deal. But she understands I'm a risk taker. I took a risk to start my cabinet shop. Had to invest about $15,000 there, but it paid off, thank God, after several years of hard work and all. And she kept encouraging me, and I was ready to shut the door one time because I just wasn't getting where I needed to be. But so, you know, there's some forgiveness if you want to see it.
Yeah, Megan, I brought that up on the daily. If you did that. All right, so let's we're gonna jump around here a little bit, really quickly. Try to run through some of these. What kind of things do you and your wife do to maintain a healthy relationship?
Well, I work with Donna, so we spend a whole lot of time together. We talk a whole lot, knocking stuff off each other. You know, what can we do for the business? What can we do for our children? You know, it's just always constant knocking ideas around, and that really has made us very close. And you know, it does present the opportunity for what we got bickering. Is that what you said a while ago? It wasn't fighting, but it was yeah,
Just fussing.
just fussing. Yeah, we might do a little of that, but
Picking and fussing.
anyway, it's good. You know, that's really made us close.
If you can work together, you're a special couple. Me and Regina couldn't work together. Although she does come down to the shop many times when I get really in a bind. She's very willing and helpful to come down to the shop and help me with something. But she's always told me, she says, now with me and you can't work together all the time because I can't take the way you boss. Because when I get down there, I'm very specific about what I want done and how I want it done. Up at the house, I don't care. that bothers her. But you know, at the same time, I don't. And there's been a couple of times there's been a job at the bank that opened up, and I would say, you know, like a courier position. So you know, why don't you get me to do that? She could not. I could not work for her. She couldn't stand the way I worked. You know, because we're just two different people on that. But now, apparently, Mr. Tim and Miss Donna have a good rapport working together. And there are some people that's got that gift. See, that comes with getting to know your partner. But for us, it wouldn't work on a daily basis. Occasionally, it's fun.
Well, I couldn't work with my wife either, I'll have to say. She does also help me when I need help with something, but you know, we probably have those little fusses about as much when that's going on. But in everything else that we do, I think that goes back to what we were saying to begin with. It's kind of, you've got the same interest morally, and So whatever either one of you wants to do, you know it's something that you'll be glad to go and do with them. And we probably fuss more about she will want to go on vacation, and I'm not a big traveler. I'm not crazy about it, but I'll say, yeah, we'll go. Well, then she gets mad because I don't jump up and down and say, I really want to go there or do that, you know. But she's the same way with me. But we both make compromises, and that's key, I think, to building it, is to make the compromise. But you don't want to, man, what I'm trying to get at, you don't want the partner to feel like you're just doing it just because you want to make them happy, even though that's the goal.
Sometimes, factually, that is it.
It is it.
You just simply do it to make them happy,
But
and
you-
that's good. That's
Work
okay.
together. Work together.
All right. Let's go back to fights for a minute. What kind of role does emotions play in having fights?
You better have them under control.
There you go.
If you don't, I mean, I evidently have this voice that anything I say, I mean. And, you know, many times I don't mean anything. And sometimes I do mean to get loud and be heard. April can vouch for that because she played ball for me, and I could get your attention. Katie refers to that all the time. Well, you just sound mad, you know, and I don't really mean to be, but you need to keep your emotions in check. And one thing I think back on myself all through school, through work, my whole life, never had any what you call a lot of just, you know, scrapes, fights with anybody or anything. I've always been pretty much, my anger came after I get home or something, you know, I get to thinking and build up later. So at the time, my emotions were always in check. And, you know, you may be pouring it to me and I'm just standing there grinning, you know, and make you mad for grinning. But if you let those emotions come out, that's when the trouble usually starts. And you need to have at least one partner that can keep them in check. But really, if both people can keep your emotions in check, you know, they're going to really not enter into the conflict at all, and the little conflict will just just pass right on by.
And that's 100%. I agree with everything you said.
Let's see, emotions. One thing is, if you don't have emotions in a fight, it's a discussion, right? So, but
That's a
anyway,
proverb.
right?
That's a proverb. That's a good point.
So, but you know, you just when you're fighting, you just don't want to get too mean. You know, it's gonna happen in a marriage. I don't see it happening dating. I just think if you're having trouble with temper and arguments and that kind of stuff while you're dating, it's throwing up a big red flag to me. Because what you're not doing is you're not agreeing on the big things in life. When you're dating someone, you really want to think about the big things in life. Dave Ramsey said there are 4 things that you want to agree on before you're married. One of them is money. One of them is politics, religion, and in-laws. So those are 4 very important topics that, you know, and if you're dating and if you're arguing, you're probably going to be arguing because money's not in an argument on dating, because he's got all the money when he's dating. He's got plenty. But when you get married, well, you'll say you got plenty.
Yeah.
But when you're married, you know, it's just different. So so your arguments when you get married, you're thrown together as newlyweds. You're trying to figure out the forks in the spoon, where the milk goes. You can get in those arguments, and so when you do, you just don't want to get too mean. You don't want to start calling names and that kind of stuff. Stay on topic. If you're arguing, stay on the topic that you're arguing about. Don't bring up what I did 5 years ago or a year ago, because if you know, basically when Paul talks about love, you just don't remember those things. When you love someone, you don't bring it back into remembrance.
And if you do, you're losing the argument. That's why you
Right.
do that, 'cause you're losing. Thank you for not laughing. So you kind of said that y'all don't argue, you kind of bicker. Is that something that you got better at? Like you talk about where the forks and spoon goes and the milk goes, as you figure that stuff out, does it turn from arguments to bickering a little bit more, or did you start out not fighting?
Now we argued more when the kids were young. We had stronger arguments. Of course, we were younger in our marriage, so as we grow, we just fuss a little bit now. We bounce stuff off each other, kind of what I say. We don't get red faced, and that's me.
I get what you're saying. The kids are the problem, right?
Well, I tell you, not that they're the problem, but boy, it
Yeah.
can sure make me feel like I'm not
Yeah,
efficient.
I was going to say when you said that, and I saw Katie nodding a little bit too. I think that's true. We seem to have more when the kids, and maybe a lot of that is sometimes they get on a lot on your nerves. Some of them did, but it did seem like the kids are gone now, and we do handle things a lot differently, and I think that's just part of that growing that we do in the relationship, and you find out it doesn't matter where that spoon goes anyway. It's in the drawer. That's the main thing,
That's what I keep telling her.
Yeah. So I think one of you, realizes that, and Katie still can't put the toilet paper on right, but
Yeah, I know.
we let that go. But yeah, it's just growing enough to accept, that I'm not perfect, she's not perfect, and regardless what Cody says.
You got anything to say on that one?
I don't know. You're gonna have arguments. Keep the emotions down as much as possible. Just keep the emotions out of it. And Tim had a great point. Don't throw stuff back up at them. If you're doing that, you're trying to cause more problems. So just keep it on the topic. Discuss it as much as you can, and keep it factual. What are we going to do about this? Johnny's not doing good enough at school, so what are we going to do about this? Well, one of us has got to sit down with him and help him through his lesson every night. And the other one says, well, I can't do it. I just don't have time. I'm just whipped at night. Well, the other one might have to step in. Sometimes you're going to have to tag team it. Both of you do it. So, but if you're having arguments, like he said, if you're having arguments during dating, that's going to pretty much have to be a no-go. It's time to find a different person to date, because you're obviously not getting along as much as you want to get along. And girls, you may be thinking, well, he's going to carry me so and so, but one of the biggest things I see is these girls that say, well, I know he's got a little problem with this, that, and the other, but I can help him. No, you can't. You can't help him. If he's a tough guy, if he's a dominator, if he's a bully, and I, just like you said a while ago, my voice sounds like I'm mad all the time too, but I'm not. But if he's a bully, he's gonna be that much worse once you get married. So guys, if you catch yourself in that situation, you think you've got to have the upper hand on everything, think about it a little bit. You might need to calm down a little. you might need to go talk to a counselor. Get some of your anger issues out of the way. Girls, if you're only comfortable with someone that's dominating, maybe you need to talk to your mother a little bit and find out why you won't assert yourself and grow. But if you're having fights and he's a dominator, or the other way, I've seen girls bully guys, and that's really sad to see. But it happens. It happens. You know, that's a red flag, big red flag.
All right. With time running down, is there any closing words that y'all would like to leave the class with on healthy relationships?
Well, one thing that hadn't been said, maybe hasn't got anything to do with this, but kind of the same thing he's saying about, but any kind of abuse, especially physical abuse, boy or girl, it's just time to turn and walk away, because that's the kind of thing that you really can't help and you can't change. And you've got a lot of growing to do. And I've been where you're at, and I can barely remember it, but I've been there. And I know that, y'all know your parents don't know anything, and then they'll tell you that someday you'll realize they knew more than that. That's not necessarily true. I realized after I was a parent, I still didn't know everything I need to know. And as a grandparent, I still don't know everything I need to know. It's growing, and not just in your relationship, but you need to grow yourself and absorb just information like tonight. Don't let it just go in one ear and out the other. Listen to it, and always put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to look at both sides of things. And then when you go into a relationship, that will help train you of what to look for, how to be more accepting of the other person and what they think.
There's going to be a lot of people over here mad at you for that statement on
I
parents.
think they'll all agree with me.
We're still learning too.
That's right.
How many of you are dating right now? Just a quick raise of your hand. Okay, put them back down. How many of you are dating someone that goes to a church, any church? Okay, about the same. How many of you are dating someone that goes to a Church of Christ? Pretty close to the same. If they're not going to church at all, and you're a church person, that could be a danger. Now, I'll say this: I was a Baptist, but I was what you call a backslidden Baptist. I mean, I was all the way back down to the beginning rung on the ladder. Is how far back I was when me and Regina started dating. And then I became Church of Christ. It's easier to convert to something from nothing. So basically I was at nothing, even though I had grown up Baptist. Okay, but it's still better to date someone that is in church, in some form of a church, unless it's Islam. Don't do that. And I'll say that, I don't care if y'all get in trouble. But because at least you've got some basis. But if you can find someone that is Church of Christ, that is in your same actual belief level, you've got so much better chance of making it than someone that's not. But don't be very careful about marrying someone or even dating someone that doesn't go to church at all.
I would encourage you to study your Bible. The psalmist said in Psalms 119, "Thy word have I hid in my heart, that I might not sin against thee." He was talking to God, but doesn't that also apply to my relationship to my spouse or to my friends or to anyone? If I have God's word hid in my heart, I won't be sinning against people. I won't be even my spouse. So that's be my encouragement.
Okay. All right. Well, y'all be sure to thank these guys for being willing to do this, and I'll thank my dad, because as much as I can pick on him, he could be a lot meaner to me, and he didn't. But he drove a good ways to be here, so y'all be sure to thank them and get out of here.